Hello everyone and welcome back to DMG. I've got a bit of an old one for you today. Well, I suppose I always do, but this one is a little older than usual. This is a Compaq Presario from a couple years earlier than what I usually look at. But I've been wanting an Athlon XP system for quite a while, and this laptop seems like an excellent choice, so I'll see if my judgment was right. It features an Athlon XP 3000 Plus CPU, NVIDIA GeForce 4 MX graphics, and an NVIDIA Inforce chipset. So I think this will be pretty awesome. Actually, I've been using it for a little while, and it absolutely is. Let's start, as always, by taking a look around the sides. Of course, on the front here, pretty much nothing. You do have two really great JBL speakers, probably the best speakers I've heard that aren't complemented by a subwoofer. Wireless on and off switch, volume buttons on the side here, headphone, microphone, USB, that is USB 1.1, and HP dock connector, 10100 LAN, S-Video, TV out, charging jack, that is, it's not the HP jack, it's the standard like 19 volt power jack that a ton of different laptops use. It's the generic one. Huge fan vent, VGA, parallel, 56K, two more USB ports, and a DVD RAM optical drive. It's a pretty big guy. On the bottom you'll actually see that it has two fans, and funnily enough, the second fan is only used on the lower end model, which has a Pentium 4 processor that gets significantly hotter than the Athlon XP. So you'll see in mine, this is a picture that I took, the place for the second fan is empty, only the first fan is there, although it does make use of that second heatsink. It's still there, despite that second fan not being in place, which is pretty nice. That does add some extra cooling. Here is the Athlon CPU. It's a little Athlon 64, sorry, not Athlon 64, Athlon XP-M 3000 Plus. From the factory, it had ceramic thermal paste, and, well, at the time, I believe that would have been higher performing. And it runs on the NVIDIA Inforce 3 chipset, the Inforce 3 Go 150, and here is its graphics card, the GeForce 4 MX Go 420, which is a bit of a funny name, but interestingly, it has its VRAM right next to the graphics card. It's on the same package, I suppose. It's on the same BGA package, and it has 32 megabytes of dedicated VRAM. That leads us to system memory, which is up to 2 gigabytes of DDR, that is DDR1, of course. So enough about specifications, let's go ahead and open it up and power it on. I love this old NVIDIA logo that it has, absolutely wonderful. Of course, there is the Athlon XP-M Mobile. I don't know why it says XP-M Mobile, that's a little redundant. Oh! A picture I forgot to print off is the BIOS date and time defaults. I think they might be fixed now, but oh my god, it's not! It's not! System time 85-15-33 with the date 10/60/02/88. So for some reason, the BIOS battery in the system is completely dead. I haven't gotten around to replacing it yet. But for some reason, the CMOS defaults are hilariously inaccurate. A physically impossible time of a physically impossible date of a year that is like 1800 years off. Anyway, let's get out of the BIOS. But as you saw, I have 512 megabytes of RAM in here. Processor is running at, well, actually no. Well, as you saw, I have 1 gigabyte of RAM installed, and the processor is a 1600 megahertz CPU. This does take an IDE hard drive because it is of that age, and I believe I have a 320 gigabyte WD in here. Now, the reason the desktop is so full of icons is that I've actually used this laptop for playing some old games away from home. I mean, I have some old computers that I use while in my room, but while on the go, I'd actually been using this. It holds up pretty well. That GeForce card is reasonably powerful for several old games, and I actually beat the whole Starsky and Hutch game on it. I had some fun with some levels and less fun with others. But let's see, the screen resolution is 1024 by 768. I believe that is... yeah, 1024 by 768. I believe this was available in slightly higher resolution models, but I do have the base model here. Let's load up GPU-Z, take a bit of a closer look at that graphics card and the CPU as well. There it is, GeForce 4 420 Go, and it runs on AGP4X. That's the internal bus that it uses, 2 ROPs, 2 TMUs, and yeah, it's a cute little guy. Athlon 6000 Plus, socket 754, and I believe that this is one of the faster CPUs that this system can take. But I do believe it is upgradable to like a 3200 or 3600 maybe even. Again, I don't quite know that all the way though. But there's our Enforce 3 150. And the BIOS date that this shipped with is 2004. So yes, a good like 3-4 years older than what I usually look at. Of course, I'll get to games in a second, but I'll do my regular laptop tests, starting off with the keyboard. Now, this can run Windows Vista if you are a masochist, and Windows 7. Windows 7, I'd personally only go for on a dual-core system if you're actually going to be using it. I've tried Windows 7 here. Drivers work and everything. It's just not pleasant. So don't buy one of these systems for modern use. I've said that already with the HP Livestrong Special Edition. This era of system is not going to be for doing anything new on. You want, at minimum, a Core 2 Duo, but this is... personally, I think this is an excellent system for old games. But let's get a feel for that keyboard really quickly. What I don't like about this keyboard is actually not a problem of the keyboard itself. It is the touchpad around it, or sorry, the palm rest. The palm rest area is so huge. It is larger than the size of my palm. I do have pretty small hands. If you have larger hands, this will not be an issue for you, but it's uncomfortable for me to use this keyboard because of how much girth the palm rest has. It's so thick, it's so wide, it is uncomfortable for me to rest my wrists on for a long period of time. But the keyboard itself, it's nice, it's tactile, very, very little deck flex. The chassis of the laptop is plastic. It does have some metal frame components underneath, but in general, this whole laptop is mostly plastic, yet it is one of the most sturdy plastic laptops I've ever felt. So, keyboard is really solid. Next thing that just blew my damn mind are the speakers. I'll give you a little taste of those. So they get solidly down there in bass, but without compromising treble response. Let's see, and that was only like 50% volume. All the way up,
Well, I wouldn't want to put it all the way up, honestly, because I would bother my neighbors. These get legitimately very, very loud. Really solid speakers, and another interesting detail is the codec this uses, the ADI SoundMax. It has a custom MIDI profile called the SoundMax XG Lite, and some instruments with this custom profile actually sound a good deal different than general MIDI. Piano and strings kind of sound the same because those are relatively standard as far as MIDI sound cards go. However, synth sounds are a lot more... They're a lot more like 70s sci-fi B-movie. So I personally far prefer this preset because it sounds absolutely wacky.
One last thing to compliment is the trackpad. It is huge. Of course, not very big by modern standards, where the trackpad is like the size of the damn keyboard, but as far as old laptops go, this is damn big for 2004. To be fair, this whole laptop is pretty big, but this touchpad was definitely not like the size you would normally see in 2004. I also like how the scrolling region has this bar, this physical like bump on the touchpad that you can feel. So it makes it a lot easier to not accidentally encroach on the scrolling region when you're just trying to move around on a web page. Really awesome. I find myself making fewer scrolling mistakes, although I do wish the region was a little smaller. But in general, I enjoy the touchpad. Note that this is 640 by 480 for just Tetris Worlds, because the PC version actually only runs at 640 by 480. So viewing angles on the screen are actually just fine side to side. Up and down are pretty bad as usual. This is a T-in panel from what it looks like. I mean, I'm not a display expert, but it's definitely a cold cathode fluorescent backlight. Probably T-in panel. So of course the main stress that Tetris Worlds puts on the system is the dynamic backgrounds. Tetris on its own is really, really easy to run, but the dynamic backgrounds and effects for like explosions and stuff, that's where the big demand comes in. So of course you saw it loaded the background just fine. There wasn't really any lag while pulling in those assets. We'll load another background real quick. Yeah, give me that 3D. And those are live rendered. Those are in-engine. They're not like cutscenes. So of course it runs Tetris fine. Let's try... might as well go for the game that I beat on this system. Yeah, that's shoot, it's Alt. So this is like, I'll call it a GTA-like. It's not open world, it's like GTA without the open world. It's just the missions. And it's running just fine. This is at the native resolution of 1024 by 768. You might see the colors look a little flat on screen. That's just what the screen looks like. Unfortunately, it's not the most detailed of screens. But again, this is 2004. I can't complain all that much. Damn it. Let's get some big booms happening here. Great physics here. So it runs fine, even through like particle effects and that sort of thing. Oh god, this was the awful section. So of course, even when things get a little more demanding. It still holds up just fine. I personally was really impressed with the performance of this laptop when I played this game on it a couple months ago. Honestly, didn't expect it to run as well as it does. I put some more shovelware on there just to show people, because shovelware is really funny. Let's do this little battleship game. Again, native 1024 by 768. Might as well do 32-bit. Man, what the hell? How? How have none of us hit something yet? Actually, this mode is a bit more demanding on the hardware. Yeah. So there is a little lag amidst the camera pans. How am I getting so unlucky? That's like the whole board. Okay, there we go. I just needed to complain more. So this is running just fine. There is a tiny bit of lag sometimes, but those aren't worth testing. Might as well go straight for Unreal Tournament 2004. I recall this running very poorly. GeForce 6 series was new when this game was new. So this card is a couple generations older. So yeah, it's a low-end card from a couple generations like previous. And the gap between generations used to be a lot bigger many years ago. I have the details turned down really low, as you can see, and it's running fine here, but the game looks like ass. And I also don't have my special sauce mods installed, because with like the funny anime girls mod and stuff, it didn't run very well. So I reinstalled the game without those, just straight from the disk. Actually, there was some screen tearing there, so that means we're getting above 60 FPS. We'll turn on some of this stuff. Yeah, you can see it's already getting a little crustier. It's more of an input lag problem. Now, granted, it is a slight input lag problem. It is not a big input lag problem. But it is still unpleasant nonetheless. Definitely lower frame rate, bit less of a pleasant experience. An interesting thing is, the graphics card doesn't even have any cooling. Nothing at all. It's not even thermal padded to the like metal chassis of the laptop. Doesn't have a heatsink, doesn't have thermal paste. It's just there. It's just on the motherboard. So, I'd actually never experienced a graphics card like that. Yes, I know that's normal, I know it's supposed to be that way, but still, it just feels a little wrong. So I put some thermal pads on it to connect it to the metal, like the metal mid-frame of the laptop, and I feel like I can rest a little easier when I'm pushing the GPU hard, because I know at least now it has something to cool it down. And it's not just sitting there getting hot. But the CPU, it has a massive heatsink. In that little picture that I showed earlier, you probably saw some of that. It has a massive heatsink. The fan stays quite quiet. I did repaste it. It was in like the low 70s before I replaced thermal paste. So keep in mind that these are lower settings than I usually test Unreal Tournament 2004 on. I typically crank everything all the way up to high. This is a mix of like medium and high settings. But still, for a lower-end mobile graphics card that came out like 2 generations before this game did, not awful. It could be a lot worse. And probably a lot of the limitation is the CPU, because 1600 megahertz single core is not the fastest either. The first time I played Unreal Tournament 2004 was with a GeForce 6800 and a 2 gigahertz Athlon 64. And I know the Athlon 64 is a bit of a different chip, but the 2 gigahertz Athlon 64 was actually bottlenecking the GeForce 6800. So I would not be surprised at all if some of this poor performance is also caused by the processor. Why is it so hard to get to your downloads folder in XP? I believe this game is a little older than this laptop, so it should not have any problems, and I don't recall it having any problems the last time I played it, because again, I have used this laptop, and I do find it to be a remarkably enjoyable experience gaming-wise. Why is it freezing here? It's done this twice in a row, where it's frozen right here. Okay, so that's not a good sign. I don't know why that keeps happening. Maybe San Andreas will yield a bit of a different result. That did not happen last time I played it on this laptop. I did kind of try a few games. Here we go. Okay, so there's some serious input lag in San Andreas. This is... Oh, that's bad. Well, that was the Compaq Presario R3000, a pretty solid laptop if you're looking for an early 2000s gaming choice. Now, as you saw, for some reason, both GTA games that I tested did not work very well. I had played those before on that laptop and not had issues, but I guess it just wasn't feeling it today. But of course, the Athlon XP processor and the NVIDIA GeForce 4 MX graphics are quite good, quite nicely performing, and also way more efficient than the Pentium 4 model, which I still find really funny that they added an extra fan for the lower end laptop because it used so much power. But anyway, if you're looking for a portable way to play like favorite early 2000s games, maybe not the heaviest titles, I would absolutely have no problem recommending the Presario R3000. As I've said, it's surprisingly sturdy for a mostly plastic laptop, great keyboard, great speakers, okay screen, and fantastic performance. But that's it for this video, so thank you everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, I hope you'll come back next time.